Welcome to the El Salvador SV News Podcast, a space for conversation and reflection where we explore current topics from El Salvador and the world together. You can support this project via PayPal. You'll also find details in the description of this content or by purchasing digital content of products you might like. Check out what interests you and make a purchase. With that, you help and support us to continue providing content. You'll find all the methods in the content description. Find us on your favorite platform, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio. We're on almost all platforms as Noticias El Salvador SV. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we have a pretty complex mission.
That's putting it lightly.
We're taking this whole stack of sources you shared and we're going to try to cut through the noise because they really show two completely contradictory realities happening at the exact same time.
You really do.
So on one side, you have this global financial storm, just fear, panic, a massive flight from risk.
And on the other
side shows a very specific localized reality, mainly centered on El Salvador, that, it appears to be building a kind of economic and social bomb shelter right in the eye of that storm. We're looking at a profound global correction, right next to this regional data showing internal stability, even resilience.
Yeah.
So our task is to analyze what this dual reality means for you, for your understanding of global risk versus localized development.
And that dual reality is instantly apparent when you look at the financial data. I mean, the most striking thing in these sources is that core economic contradiction. Why are traditional blue chip markets and these, volatile speculative assets acting in perfect negative lockstep? It's a really unusual level of synchronization.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The big headline that's setting the global mood is, it's undeniable. A profound correction is underway.
And we aren't talking about isolated sectors.
No, not at all. We are seeing major indexes and the volatile crypto markets just plummeting together.
It's a synchronized drop. And that just screams systemic risk aversion.
What's so fascinating here is how clearly that correlation is documented. I mean, we are watching Wall Street futures, the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, and especially the tech-heavy NASDAQ 100.
All of them seeing significant dips.
Exactly. And critically, high-risk volatile assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum.
They're behaving identically, which, confirms they are now functionally linked to that traditional risk spectrum.
So this is more than just a typical market fluctuation. This is the market making a collective, almost panicked decision to get out of growth and speculation, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Right.
The key driver identified across all the sources is just a massive risk aversion.
Linked to recession fears.
Deep fears of a global recession. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the root cause is aggressive monetary tightening.
Central banks.
The central banks, led by the Federal Reserve, just raising rates constantly to fight this stubborn inflation. And that action has a direct, almost a mechanical effect.
How so?
Well, by raising the cost of capital, future growth is automatically discounted more heavily. So growth companies, especially those that rely on future cash flows instead of, present profit,
their valuations just crash.
They crash immediately. And speculative assets like crypto, which benefit so much from easy liquidity, they see that liquidity drain away, which just accelerates their drop.
And this effectively ends the narrative, or at least challenges it, that assets like Bitcoin are somehow totally independent of the macro financial system.
Precisely. Bitcoin, which we saw trading just below $90,000 at 89.8.
89,800, yeah.
It's acting exactly like a high-risk tech stock. Its inherent volatility is just magnified because its market is smaller and less liquid than traditional markets.
So when fear hits,
you see these steeper drops because there are just fewer buyers there to cushion the fall.
But this is where the nuance of the sources comes in, because even in the middle of this synchronized market fear, we see some institutional conviction still there.
That's right. Despite all the turbulence, you have banks like Banco Itaú of Brazil recommending a small allocation.
Small, but still significant.
Exactly. Specifically, 1 to 3% of investment portfolios to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And their rationale is purely for long-term diversification. They're acknowledging the volatility, but still see a distinct role for digital assets in a mixed portfolio.
And then we have the case of sovereign holdings. El Salvador's treasury has now reportedly reached 7,500 bitcoins.
That number really stands out.
It does, because it reinforces this continued national commitment to the asset, despite reports suggesting the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, indicated the country had suspended its purchases.
It's a very public declaration of independence from, traditional financial advice.
So this raises an important question for anyone holding these volatile assets right now.
Yeah.
What's the next major macro risk on the horizon?
We are watching Japan very, very closely. They are preparing for their first interest rate hike in 11 months.
And historically,
this type of move has preceded massive Bitcoin drops. We're talking some superior to 20%. That's a huge potential swing. So if you are analyzing global financial threats, keep Tokyo front and center.
Okay, that really sets the stage for the global financial panic. But now let's smoothly shift gears and turn our attention to the human capital side of the equation.
Migration and security.
Exactly.
Correct.
Which often seems to run on its own internal, localized logic, almost insulated from that Wall Street frenzy. When we look at the data on El Salvador, the migration picture presents this massive contradiction.
It really does.
On one hand, the volume of deportations is high. 2025 has seen El Salvador receive 162 flights carrying deportees from the United States. That's a significant, steady volume. But, and this is a key piece of timing in the data, the number of flights received dropped 13% in the last month from the peak we saw earlier this year.
And that small drop in return flights, when you take it in the context of border data, it signals a genuine shift.
Absolutely. If we zoom out to the United States border, the detention of Salvadoran migrants in the San Diego-Tijuana corridor has fallen dramatically.
How much?
An 85% drop in 2025. Only 17 Salvadorans were detained in that specific 2.5-month period. So this shows that while the U.S. is still processing and deporting high numbers of past crossings, the rate of new successful crossings in that crucial area has been, severely curtailed.
What's fascinating here, though, is the economic ripple effect of all this migration uncertainty.
Right.
A report from the Inter-American Development Bank, the BID, suggests that this very instability, maybe paradoxically, has actually generated an increase in remittances flowing into El Salvador.
That is really counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Why would uncertainty drive more money home?
Well, if we look for insight, the analysis suggests that uncertainty about future United States policy or, the increasing difficulty and risk involved in crossing the border.
Right.
It might be incentivizing current migrants to send larger lump sum amounts home soon rather than later. They might be front-loading financial support, driving up that aggregate remittance figure temporarily to secure their families back home before the policy environment tightens even further.
And the official United States posture, it remains very firm. The sources note these strong statements asking illegal immigrants to leave or face active searches and deportation. It just underscores that tough policy environment. Now, overlaying this whole complex migratory dynamic is a significant internal security success story that's being reported locally.
And this speaks directly to the resilience we were talking about earlier.
It does.
Yeah, and this isn't just a handful of anecdotes. These reports suggest a measurable, systemic change in the security landscape.
For instance, El Salvador accumulated 11 days without homicides in December.
11 days.
That's a foundational metric of public safety improvement. And furthermore, the country rose 25 positions in the world ranking specifically for combating organized crime.
That's a huge leap. It implies global recognition of, effective suppression efforts.
Then this data is reinforced by tangible enforcement results that are in the sources. They note specific captures, like an individual in La Libertad Oeste who was responsible for a homicide and reportedly dedicated to drug sales.
Right.
They also cite a subject condemned to 14 years for being part of the MS-13 gang. These localized successes, they provide the operational evidence that reinforces that broader positive security narrative. Okay, so let's shift our focus to the localized economy and the social fabric, because it seems this newfound stability is translating into tangible progress.
Even as the global financial environment darkens.
Exactly.
Analyzing the local economic pulse, the projections show genuine signs of internal confidence. For example, more than 27,000 new vehicles were sold in 2025.
And the auto industry is calling this the highest figure ever recorded.
Right. That indicates not just consumer confidence, but a significant segment of the middle class making major capital purchases.
And we can see where that capital is concentrating.
We can. Of all construction permits approved by the Metropolitan Authority, OPAMSS 41% are focused specifically in San Salvador.
So that suggests focused investment and urban core growth.
It does, but it also raises the question of capital concentration. Is this confidence spread evenly, or is it heavily centered in the capital? Either way, it signals a strong commitment to building infrastructure.
And here's where it gets really interesting on the social side, showing the scope of public sector improvement. There's a politologist, Oscar Peñate, who made a very bold statement.
What did he say?
He suggested that public medical care in El Salvador is becoming an international model.
That's a high bar.
Yeah.
But the operational data offers some proof of demand and scale. The Dr. SV platform.
Right, a key part of this new medical care system.
It attended 350,000 patients in just its first month of operation.
350,000.
That rapid adoption and massive scale immediately implies significant social stability and operational capacity coming online very quickly.
But this local success story, it exists within a turbulent political region. We need to zoom out and look at the continuing political contrast and shifts happening across the continent. In South America, for example, the European Union renewed sanctions on Venezuela until January 2027.
So this isn't a new measure, but the continuation signals that sustained international pressure.
Right. And we also saw an editorial that highlighted the profound significance of the Nobel Prize being awarded to Maria Corina Machado.
And that phrase from the sources, that the award interpels the world and exposes the Venezuelan tragedy, that's really important. It highlights how international recognition is being wielded as a powerful tool to destabilize the current regime by actively pushing that internal political tragedy onto the global diplomatic stage.
Meanwhile, further south, the political landscape is shifting dramatically. José Antonio Kast, an ultraconservative attorney in Chile, he successfully won the presidency on his third attempt.
And this is noteworthy because it places him squarely within a discernible wave of ultra-right politicians gaining power across the Americas.
Yeah, creating a very complicated and polarized regional backdrop for countries that are pursuing their own localized stability. Now, we have to shift our focus entirely. We have to address a disturbing international security incident that reminds us that global stability is threatened not just by financial panic or political shifts,
but by persistent global extremism.
Yes. We are talking about the armed attack against a Jewish community event that occurred recently. It was on the first day of Hanukkah at Bondi Beach, Australia.
A truly horrific incident. I mean, made worse by the location, a public beach during a time of celebration, and just the clear, targeted nature of the violence.
The immediate impact was devastating. 16 people were killed, including a police officer and one of the attackers. 29 people were injured.
And the quick identification and the evidence, it immediately pointed to a clear terror motive.
It did.
The sources detailed that the attackers were identified as Sajid Akram, aged 50, who was killed by police, and his son, Naveed Akram, who's 24. He was injured and remains in custody.
Critically, security forces found improvised explosive devices, IEDs,
and flags of the Islamic State, ISIS,
in one of the attackers' vehicles.
And that evidence, it just led to the swift official classification of the incident as terrorism,
which was strongly condemned by the Australian Prime Minister as an act of evil, anti-Semitism, and terrorism directed against Australian Jews.
It's just a sobering reminder that regardless of financial market fears, global political extremism remains a lethal and very present danger.
So this deep dive has presented two fundamentally opposing narratives across the global landscape. On one hand, you have immense, generalized global financial instability. It's driven by macro fears, by central bank actions,
causing a synchronized flight from risk.
Exactly. And on the other hand, you have a starkly contrasting, seemingly focused regional effort toward internal stability and measurable economic and social growth, particularly what we're seeing in El Salvador. That is the ultimate synthesis of all this material, isn't it?
Right.
You saw severe global risk aversion reflected in those synchronized market drops. You saw a complex dynamic in migration where deportations are high, but new border crossings are down significantly.
And then the sobering reality of global political extremism brought home by the terror attack in Australia.
Right. The world map right now seems to be characterized by these extreme financial volatility and these extreme localized efforts toward success.
So what does this all mean for you?
Well, that's the question. If global markets are fleeing risk because of major rate hikes and deep recession fears, can localized security in these robust domestic economic narratives, like the ones in El Salvador, marked by high vehicle sales and massive infrastructure focus, can they successfully insulate a region from that overwhelming tide of international financial panic?
Is regional stability enough of a foundation to weather a global storm?
Something for you to mull or explore on your own.